Welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast, talking about the UFC Vancouver card, headlined by Reiner de Ridder versus Brendan Allen, in a fight that is probably more interesting for the reaction to it than actually for its own, action. Because as far as the main event goes, this was not especially good. It was a pretty easy to break down fight. It was round one, Reiner de Ridder gets a takedown. He gets dominant position for 4 minutes of the round. He lands some ground and pound. Apparently 40 strikes. It felt like way less live. But, it was there. There was apparently no submission attempts credited, although I wouldn't go that far. I would say that there were some setups, some ideas. I've never been entirely certain what the UFC stats considers to be a submission attempt, because sometimes there's one there and I'm just like, I don't remember that, and sometimes there's just none there and it's like, I'm pretty sure there was some arm triangle work there from Reiner de Ridder in the first round and so on. There was some ideas, but good round, solid round, 10-9 probably. In a perfect world, I'd probably say that that's a 10-8 round, but we've established that the requirements for a 10-8 round are very, 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 very high when it comes to that. And then round two comes out. De Ridder is back. He crashes into the clinch. He mobs him again. He takes him down briefly. And then Allen, does a way better job just from the bottom here, because he refuses to be flattened out. He refuses to be completely broken down. De Ridder hops on his back. He gets shaken off and ends up on bottom, and he gets landed on for ground and pound pretty repetitively. This is I don't want to say the absolute last success that De Ridder has, because he has a little bit at the start of round three, but this is predominantly the end for De Ridder here. And this is a thing we've seen from De Ridder before. When people are able to stop his roll, he doesn't really know how to get back on it. He doesn't really have the mentality or the skill set to get back on it. And it was why I was very nervous about picking De Ridder. The only reason I went with De Ridder was that I thought that on short notice, there would not be quite enough of a game plan, quite enough of a comfort level from Brendan Allen to do what he did out there 2 nights ago. And that's why I have to take the L. I had De Ridder. I'm not nothing I say now is going to be like undoing the fact that I picked De Ridder, and I'm on the record having said that. If you go back, I had misgivings, I had concerns, I had issues. I said that if De Ridder does indeed fall behind Allen, it's going to be a problem for him. Round three comes around. De Ridder gets the takedown again. And this is actually the last positive thing he has, because he again ends up getting reversed, getting beaten up, and just getting worked. There was even a threat of an inverted triangle, which seems to be like the random thing lately. Not that anyone's actually pulling it off, and I don't expect anyone to pull it off, but there's been some random inverted triangle spots. It was Joel Alvarez versus Vicente Luque in Rio. That was kind of like that. So a doctor gets summoned to review De Ridder between rounds 3 and 4. And he does let him continue. He's clearly exhausted. He's clearly disheartened. It's problems. Allen shoots in on De Ridder and actually deposits him in his corner. He picks him up, does the full on, we're going over to my corner now where I can get my advice and you cannot get your advice. And not doing anything amazing, but doing by far enough. Punishing De Ridder very frequently and consistently. Getting to side control, threatening the crucifix, doing all those things. He's beating him down. He's looking for Kimura in the last 25 seconds, maybe a straight arm bar. It's not likely to be there. He does go for the straight arm bar, but you're not really going to get that. That's not a serious submission attempt in a nutshell, but it's something. It's embarrassing. De Ridder is so slow getting back up, and he was after round 2 and round 3 as well, that the ref is summoning the doctor and taking very seriously that we're going to have to stop this fight. And at this point, we do get a mix of the corner stopping it, because apparently De Ridder's corner gave up, but the referee was also talking about stopping it, and the doctor was probably also going to stop it because De Ridder is looking basically out of it. So Herzog was going to bring it into, I think, anyways, but I credit the corner for actually doing this. Now, the interesting thing that has come out of this is because it's very clear to me that people have never watched De Ridder's losses. Because everybody is lining up to be like, okay, how did this happen? How do you go from beating Robert Whittaker to losing to Brendan Allen? What happened here? He has to have had an injury. He has to have been sick. He has to have been all of these different things. Or my favorite, because it's a bit weird, we have to really give Brendan Allen a lot of credit for putting out this performance. And I'm like, all of this could be true. I'm not going to say de Ridder is not injured. His fake Twitter account, the one that says it's Reiner de Ridder, but it's not Reiner de Ridder, is out there, talking about a laundry list of injuries. But I read the statement from his coaches, and they mentioned nothing about an injury. Could be the case. I've said this a number of times. Very seldom is a fighter 100%. But he doesn't need to have been. This is what happened to him in a less brutal fashion, or in a more brutal fashion, against Anatoly Malkin in one. And it's also happened in some of his grappling matches even, where he gets behind and he gets exhausted and he falls apart. And this is it's a part of him. If you want to call him a front runner, you want to call him a bully, you want to call him whatever. Oh, the other thing I guess is this was his 4th weight cut in a year, which is a lot. Don't get me, again, all of these things probably are making it worse. Brendan Allen being very ready for this game, the 4th weight cut, possible injuries. These are all things that can make it worse, but this is just Reiner de Ridder. This is what happens when his A game doesn't work. He does not come from behind well. And when he gets tired, he gets tired. It's not a gradual thing. It's just he goes from full on the tank to exhausted. There's no middle ground. Or at the very least, he goes from 3/4 full on the tank to exhausted. That's the problem. It's part of the reason I expected him to probably lose to Robert Whittaker. It's part of the reason I was worried about picking him against GM3. And it's part of also the reason why I was worried about picking him against Bo Nickel. Because all of these things were really problem. The only time I've without a second thought picked de Ridder was against Kevin Holland. It was just no, Kevin Holland is 100% going to give him the exact fight he wants, and he is not going to survive that early grappling dominance. It's not going to happen. Everyone else has been no, this is a possibility. And it's why I would have picked Fluffy Hernandez in a heartbeat to win this fight when it was announced. And I have tweets to that effect, if you want to go check it out. This is just, it's just what happens. It's part of him. And to see people have to come up with a conspiracy theory or a different reason is a bit weird. This is the Reiner de Ridder you're getting. It's why Reiner de Ridder is not going to win a title. It's why Reiner de Ridder is going to lose most of his serious fights. He caught Robert Whittaker honestly, we'll see on Whittaker's next fight, I guess, but it just seems like Whittaker is kind of done. Kevin Holland is tailor-made to lose to him. Bo Nickel is far too raw. And GM3 is somewhat tailor-made to lose to him. Because GM3 is the grappling specialist that you can out-grapple. Brendan Allen went out there and just put it on him. Did not accept bad positions. Scrambled him. Got on top. Punished him from top. It's not fantastic. I do tip my hat to Brendan Allen for one, taking the fight on short notice, and two, performing as well as he did. The credit should be given and enthusiastically. But Malkin did this already. We've seen this before. So what's next for de Ridder? Hopefully a little bit of time off. 4 weight cuts in a year it's a lot. But that's also the thing. People want that kind of activity from people. And I'm just they're going to have letdown performances. So it is what it is. So good win for Brendan Allen, moves him up. Called for a title shot. Allen is constantly definitely one of those guys who says insane things. Dude, you did lose, and it doesn't matter if you thought you lost to Hernandez and Imavov, you did. And there's not really a contingent that thinks you did not. So you're not anywhere near a title shot. Let's be real. He also did call for a DDP or Sean Strickland rematch. Both of those are on the table. I'm fine with both of those fights. I do think DDP probably deserves something a little bit higher up, personally. But the Strickland rematch would be perfectly fine. I think that's a good one. We had some controversy with Kevin Holland, Mike Malott. Basically, the controversy is that Kevin Holland is largely winning the round. Malott is struggling early to find his range, which is expected because Holland has a 8-inch reach advantage over him, along with a 2-inch height advantage. This is a thing that Holland has over most people, and Malott does not have a particularly long range for the weight class, 73 inches. And he's also stuffing some takedowns. That being said, and there's a moment where Holland drops him with the right hand. Throws a couple of hammer fist follow-ups before getting into the guard, where he like kind of does a little like, stand-up thing, but like within reach, and actually gets swept by Malott, who takes his back and actually has a really, really good moment there. But there's some scrambling, and there's Holland doing okay, rolls through to his feet. There's a low blow stoppage when Holland takes one low. This one doesn't seem to be a big deal. Put a pin in that because we're going to be talking about Holland's balls later on. And this is where we get it. Holland lands a hard right hand. He gets a little bit silly with like some telegraphed uppercuts. He throws a jump knee in there, lands himself in the clinch, which is where he should not want to be with Malott, just because the place he should want to be is at range. And Malott knees him in the balls. And Holland is taking the full 5 minutes because he is in a bad way. Like clearly this is not a little low blow. He shook off the first one, no problem. This one was proper. This one was a problem. And the referee, I thought, handled it very, very poorly because there were just some things said in there and like rushing him, particularly towards the beginning of round 2, where they're talking about it being a DQ loss if he cannot continue, which is technically true, I suppose, because we had gone past the point of the foul. This is of course a problem with the UFC just in general, that everything is geared towards not ending a fight in a no contest or disqualification. We hate that, apparently. The UFC always has. It's why it's discouraged from corners throwing the towel in, and referees are really discouraged from taking a point for fouls. They're really discouraged from calling fights. It like in a just world, referee Dan Mirgliotta, who had some controversies early, we are going to be talking about Dan Mirgliotta a lot in this podcast, but he should have just stopped this fight. Like, is what it comes down to. Real talk. Like, this should have been the end of it. There shouldn't have been a continuation at this point. But there was, and we get to the end of the round, and I scored it for Holland, but it's a competitive round that could go either way. But I think most of the judges scored, because I do believe it was 29-28 across the board. And we're going to be talking about the second and third round, which I don't see how you would score for Holland. So there you go. Holland has to be checked out by the doctor before the round starts for round 2. He's complaining about his balls and so on, and there's something wrong here. Like there's something very, very wrong here. And we resume, and from this point onwards, Holland appears to be somewhat compromised during the fight. He's competitive still, but Malott is coming on. He's finding his range. He's doing some good work. He's landing the more damaging shots. Holland's still doing some good things, but Malott's doing good work. And overall, I thought this was a really good performance from Malott, although the lack of a finish was a bit of a problem. But like, there's a giant asterisk over it, which is what happens if you don't knee Kevin Holland in the balls in round 1 so badly that he has to take the full 5 minutes and is clearly compromised the rest of the way. So there is that problem. So Holland gets a loss. Apparently afterwards, he was still very, very sour with Malott. Malott tried to, do the sportsmanlike thing and be like, I didn't mean to do it, blah, blah, blah. And Holland was not taking it. Holland wanted a point taken away or disqualification or something. And again, that's not the UFC, my friend. The UFC should be disqualifying people a little bit more, or at the very least taking points for things like repeated eye gouges, particularly with the rule where you're not supposed to stick your fingers out, and everybody still does. But at the end of the day, Malott got the win in front of a nominally home crowd. I will say the Vancouver crowd did treat everybody, even from the other end of the country, like it was a home fight for them. So there was that. At some points in the history of like the UFC going to Canada, that has not been the case. But in this case, it was. So Malott gets a win, which is important, but I don't know how much his stock goes up, because again, this fight will be overshadowed by that low blow. Moving on down to Eamon Zahabi versus Marlon Vera. I don't have much to say. Round 1 to Zahabi. Round 2 to Vera because he knocked him down. Round 3 to Zahabi because he outworked him. This is the classic Cheeto Vera fight, and I feel just bad for Jason Perillo, whose career seems to be permanently marred by picking up fighters that absolutely could achieve a lot. He's also Mackenzie Dern's coach at various points, but having a guy who you hear the advice, and he's giving him the right advice, and Cheeto is not listening. He refuses to up the pace. He refuses. I don't think he lacks the tools. I think he refuses to do it. He's like become reliant on the fact that like I have big power. It's like, yeah, but maybe win rounds without that power being a defined thing, because it's, you know, it's the thing. It's like here are the 3 ways a Cheeto Vera fight goes. Option A, he knocks him out. Option B, he loses a decision. Option C, which is the Rob Font fight, basically, he loses the decision by every metric except he knocked the guy down 3 times and therefore won. It's frustrating. It's a shame because Cheeto is still only 32 years old. It feels like he's older, but like for comparison purposes, he's 5 years younger than Zahabi. He's younger than Mike Malott. He's the same age as Kevin Holland. Like he's younger than Reiner de Ridder. Like, you know, he is a young man. He's still a young man in this game. And it's just, he refuses to actually do the thing. And then we get to back to the Dan Mirgliotta train where Manon and Fiorot basically just terminated Jasmine Jasudavicius. I don't have much to say about the fight. Like, it was good to see Fiorot go out there and return to the winning column in emphatic fashion rather than winning a decision against somebody that she just shouldn't go the distance with. But this stoppage was a bit weird. I'm going to say this. The stoppage is absolutely fine. I think Jasmine Jasudavicius was very much out of it. I think she was done. She face planted on that canvas. However, Tan Dan's fight with Kyle Nelson and Matt Frevola does suggest, and this has been a long-standing problem with Dan Mirgliotta, is that his standard for the women's fights is relatively good, and his standard for men's fights is let them die. So there's a heavy level of inconsistency as far as that is concerned. So that is the only thing that like stood out to me, is that like come on Dan, we saw you literally, what is it, 2 fights before this let somebody get absolutely dusted, absolutely have their life shortened, and then you made this stoppage. So that was a bit controversial. I think on a normal night that wouldn't have been a thing, but like with the Malott Holland fight and the Nelson Frevola fight, which we are gonna get to, it bears worthy mentioning that Dan Mirgliotta is a crappy referee. Charles Jourdain made actually really short work of Davey Grant. I am positively impressed. He went out there, he outstruck him, he hurt him with a flying knee or a jumping knee. He got the guillotine choke, and he did all the things. Like he made Davey Grant look like Victor Henry, which is stunning. And man, maybe I really got to take him seriously, because I thought the move down to 135 for him would be a good idea. He was cutting basically no weight at 145, so like, you know, I'm fine with that. I'm here for that. Cool. You can make the weight. It's not going to be a problem. But I was like, he's still going to have some of the standard issues he has. That like there are some physical limitations to him, and there are some very bad decision making limitations to him. And so far at 135, he's just bulldozing people. Now, granted, it's old men, it's Victor Henry, and it's Davey Grant. So let's see what he can do against somebody who's a little bit more in the prime of their career. I think he called out, who was it that he called out? I don't remember. It was something about like we gotta go with the DILF belt or something, because he had a kid recently. I forget. Oh, Marcus McGee, which ironically would be him fighting another old guy, but it would be him fighting an old guy who is at least a physical freak and has the top end athleticism that we associate elite bantamweights with, which Victor Henry has never had and Davey Grant has also never had. So it would still do it. It's not the fight I would do, but and I don't have a specific fight in mind, but I would go younger in a nutshell. And then we had Kyle Nelson, Matt Frevola, and this is the Mirgliotta controversy of the night. So we're having a pretty fun fight in the first round. Frevola's doing his things. He gets a takedown, can't really do much with it, but he's probably ahead on the round, probably has that slight edge. And then Nelson knocks him down and just starts wailing on him, and he's gonna get the job done, and it's like bang, 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 like ends up almost doubling him up in output there. Serious damage. Probably should have got the finish. And with 3 seconds left, I believe, Mirgliotta goes and stops the fight. And apparently, it was for the end of the round because he thought the bell had gone off. The buzzer had sounded. Frevola thinks he's lost. Nelson thinks he's won. Everybody else thinks that Nelson's won. Because we know the horn didn't go. And instead of this being the end of the fight, we continue on. So, again, this is what I mean when I say that the later on stoppage with Manon and Fiorot was a bit weird because of the referee having done exactly this here with a non-stoppage when a guy is getting bludgeoned half to death. It made the other stoppage seem, in comparison, a bit weak. Round 2, kind of edged it to Nelson. Both guys have recovered a little bit. They've got it going. They're throwing hands again. I scored all 3 rounds for Kyle Nelson, by the way. You could give the second round to Frevola if you wanted to. That would be fine. But I had Nelson winning this round, and I had Nelson winning the third round. I also scored the first round 10-8 because it may have only been about 30 seconds of the round, but it was 30 seconds of the round that should have actually ended the fight. And to me, that would be a thing. The surprising thing here was that the wrestling was not a good option for Matt Frevola. He did go 2 for 3 on takedowns, which is not bad. But in the clinch, he was overpowered and actually got taken down 3 times by Kyle Nelson, or twice by Kyle Nelson on 5 attempts. That was surprising. So it was a good performance by Kyle Nelson. I do think that I'm kind of maybe largely done with Frevola, which is a shame because he follows me on Twitter, he interacts with me on Twitter, and it's cool, it's fun. I am not above cheering for a fighter who butters me up. I'm not opposed to that, but it does seem like he's taking a lot of damage, and that the dream is kind of just over for him. That his never really particularly good structured boxing game is not getting any better, and that the physical tools are getting worse and degrading. The people that are beating him are getting increasingly worse, and I don't really need to see more of it. It's up to him, obviously. I have no way of forcing someone to retire. I'm just expressing that the excitement I have for Frevola fights was at one point very, very high, and it's notably lower at this point. After the fight, Kyle Nelson didn't let us down with the custody rights of fathers stuff, which here is the thing. I agree with Kyle Nelson. The problem is that Kyle Nelson doesn't seem to get that that's already the case in Canada. I don't know about in the States, because I'm not familiar with the legal standards in all 50 states. But in Canada, every province I'm aware of anyways, 50-50 custody is the starting point for any custody dispute between a father and a mother. I'm thinking he's just looking at the final results where women get the custody a lot more often, but that is a product of a patriarchal society bent, where the woman is the primary caregiver. I don't even think I'm speaking a turn on this, because my dad has literally said that he wouldn't have even contested at any point custody if there had been a divorce. But yeah, no, my dad would never have gotten custody, and that's only one generation ago. I'm 38 years old. My father did not know when school started. My father did not know friends' names. He never took me to a doctor's appointment. And I'm not faulting it, because he was, at least when I was very young, he was the breadwinner. He went off and he worked 40 plus hours a week. He worked hard to make the money to pay for everything. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. We're not far removed from that. And the men, the boys, now men, who were raised in that scenario, tend not to be really all that much better in terms of child rearing. It's a process. It's something that has to happen. And that's the thing is, it's the grand irony is that most of the people who talk about this also firmly believe that women are the better, moms are the better parent, and that moms should be stay-at-home parents because of this. But they when the divorce comes, they somehow want to be treated as equal on the matter. And it's like, no. I asked one of our viewers, shout out Jesse. She is a lawyer who does family law. And I asked her, like, what would you say is the general vibe of a custody case? And she's like, the custody case general vibe is that, yes, a woman will win, because if you ask them the questions that are relevant to a custody case, they have the right answers. And the dad does not. But, like, if we're talking about, like, the very beginning, yes, 50-50 is already a thing. So, like, that's what makes his whole thing weird. Because most people are... Well, I don't want to say most, because, like, but most people, like, at least have some kind of theory that of something they want to change. And with Nelson, it's like he just wants the system as is, but to magically have different results, which is a little bit weird, and he's done that a couple times. Drew Dober got a point deducted for a low blow, but, like, otherwise he was winning this fight. He was ahead in the combinations. He was hitting Prepolak harder than he was getting hit back. He was hitting him more. He had the edge 28-17 in the first round, 36-27 in the second round, and 21-7 in the third round where he finished him off. Getting the point deducted seemed to, like, light a fire under his butt and get him out there to destroy him. Dober's gone through some stuff lately, but, like, so I don't know. Maybe I'll forgive the performance, because Prepolak is a guy who should have probably beat worse, but he went out there and he got the job done. So the king of the lantern jaws continues to be a dangerous guy and somebody not to be messed with in the action fighter ranks. Cody Gibson got immediately knocked out by Yurichi Lang. I don't have much more to say about that. And then Bruno Silva versus Hung Sung Park. This went kind of exactly like I thought it was. My hot pick was that I picked Silva, who was about a plus 200 underdog, to pick up the win here, because I was struggling with something about Park, and I think I finally have figured out what it is. Park is a guy who is very, very not super comfortable against having his rhythm broken, and it's like he's overly textbook in that regard. And Bruno Silva is janky, stutter timing, aggressive at odd times, counter blitzes. And that was all able to make this, like, work. That Silva was able to, make up for the lack of range that he has by being the more active fighter for the most part. Although Park apparently landed more shots in the second round. And get the damage, get the takedowns, mix everything together. Make this into a proper MMA fight, whereas Park had historically been kind of used to having a fighter who was very one-dimensional in that regard. Even the Tetsuya Taira fight was kind of one avenue that he had to worry about offense coming in, and this was all of them. This being said, Park is still a very interesting prospect. The problem is just that he has to learn, and I do wonder if he needs to go to a different gym to actually acclimatize for that, because he did not handle chaos well here. And the flyweight division is going to have plenty of that. Danny Barlow just kind of ran out of gas against Jordan Santos, basically. He won the first round by... It was kind of frustrating because Santos has, like, really, really good low kicks, but, like, Barlow is still winning the kicking battle by just being more active about it. Like, just kind of outlanding him in a nutshell. But then round two comes around, and it's looking like a really, really good round for Barlow for a bit. There was a great ability for Barlow to land his left hand. It was like Santos was not at all seeing it whatsoever, to the point where Barlow even knocked his mouthpiece out, and the referee got a little bit of flack from the commentary about replacing the mouthpiece. And also, the commentary again gave him flack. This should tell you everything you need to know about the system about fouls right now, when he called a pause to the action because Barlow eye gouged Santos. And it was very clear on the replay, yet the commentary still gave him heck. Barlow's still doing his thing. He's hurting him, stumbles him a couple times. Like, there's some legitimate, not near finishes, but, like, legitimately hurts him. And then Santos comes firing back down in the last little bit, maybe like the last minute of the round, where he's stumbling Barlow, he's hurting Barlow, and he steals the round back. Boom. And then round three was just a bad round for Barlow. He got outlanded 40-29, like heavily outlanded. Yeah, it was the least interesting round of the fight by a significant margin, because Santos just kind of got to do what he wanted, and that wasn't especially awesome. And it's clear that Barlow is very much reliant on his height, which I knew. Because he lacks defense. He doesn't really move his head. He doesn't really have a guard, and his footwork is not great. Santos, when he went forward and actually tried to pressure him, was able to get him up against the cage pretty easily and work him over. So, good win for Santos. Barlow's debut at 185 does not go very well. I don't think 185 is a problem for him. 185 seems like a place he could definitely fight at. It's just he needs to learn how to fight, and unfortunately he came in just kind of undercooked. And the problem is he's 30 years old already. Stephanie Luciano beat up Ravenna Oliveira, and there's not much else to say that. Third round, rear naked choke. Oliveira is, I said it in my predictions, Oliveira has never fought anybody. And what I mean by that is that she doesn't even really can crush. She literally fights people who are like 0-0 and don't know how to react to like strikes. Everything she does is like very, very telegraphed. There's raw physical tools there. There's even like not terrible technique the way she strikes. Like the form on her punches and her kicks is fine. It's just everything is thrown as if the opponent is not doing anything. The opponent is not actually like an active participant in the fight. And Luciano was in fact an active participant in the fight. And that made this very one-sided. And then a really actually fun fight between Yusri Belgari and Azamat Bakoyev. There is some good things coming out of this fight for Belgari. One is the fact that he fought off takedowns actually pretty well. Bakoyev went 4 for 8 here, and when he did get him down, he could not do much with him. Belgari actually did a good job of not letting him get to dominant control where he could do damage or bank control time. So that's 2 thumbs up. Now, I will say that Belgari has a problem. It is that he is way too willing to fight off the back foot, and he is way too willing to throw kicks off the back foot. And I do wonder how high he can get in the division before fighters start making him absolutely pay for that. We'll find out. It's middleweight. Middleweight is a bizarrely flawed division that has never made sense. So maybe we don't get the answer until he's like in a title shot. But I do. It's a good win. It's a great win. He showed. Well, this is the thing. I don't even want to say he showed power because Bakoyev gets hurt by everybody. In that regard, taking till the third round to finish Bakoyev is actually a bit of a problem. But it's interesting. I've got my eye on him now. Like I am properly interested to see what he can do coming off of this fight. And I picked against him, so embarrassment for me. Melissa Croden versus Tainara Lisboa. We had a pretty good first round between the two. Very equal, very even, confirmation, a lot of clinching, a lot of jostling for position, some good volume. And then Croden knocks her down in the second round and kind of dominates. And then Lisboa just does show up in the third round at all and gets TKO'd basically really quickly. So hell of a debut for Melissa Croden. I apologize for underestimating you. I stand by my logic. I do think that Lisboa is the cleaner technical striker, but this was an ass whooping from round 2 onwards. So congratulations to Melissa Croden on that matter. What do we have up next for the UFC here? Oh yeah, UFC 321, the Aspinall versus Gone fight card. Jandiroba versus Dern. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Batista. Looking forward to that fight. Volkov versus Gelton Almeida, and Alexander Rakic versus Azamat Murzakanov as a main card. It's not bad. Is there a gem on the undercard that I'm super looking forward to? Not really. Alaskarov versus Iron Turtle could be fun. Gonna have to pick against the Iron Turtle though. That kind of ruins it for me. Oh, Rumbeski versus Ludwig Klein, Battle of the Short Kings. Okay, that's gonna be fun. Yeah. That's my pick for sleeper on the undercard. Anyways, tune in next time when I get my picks for that card, and I hope you enjoy. Check out the links down below for my video gaming stuff, for my Discord server with the Fight Simulator and also the Fight Prediction League, and above all else, have a really, really awesome day.